Alright, welcome to my updated Optimal Rasial Rotation Guide. I'm going to showcase to you how to get the most consistent and highest number of kills per hour using a new rotation that accounts for the nerf to death skulls. The fastest kill I personally achieved with this rotation was a 51.6 second kill, but my average kill time over 150 kills of testing was 56.4 seconds. My average time spent banking, building adrenaline, and conjuring was about 21 seconds. And taking into the account that the boss takes 3 global cooldowns to spawn, I'm going to round up and call the time spent between kills 27 seconds. This means that a full Rasial completion should take you about 83.4 seconds, and you can expect to get 43 kills in an hour this way. Let's go over my preset. I'm wearing a full set of the first Necromancer's gear with a Salve Amulet, a Reaver's Ring, and a Zuck Cape. My invention perks are the standard best in slot perks as listed on the wiki. Some important things to go over in my inventory are the 4 Necromancy runes and Ectoplasm, rune pouches that allow me to use Vengeance and Disruption Shield, expensive spices, which make my jellyfish heal me slightly more, a tier 90 Death Guard and a Death Touch bracelet that I will use in the final phase, and lastly, Dreadnips, which will periodically stun the boss. Passively stunning Rasial with Dreadnips is optional, but I recommend it as it will create some opportunities where Rasial is unable to attack you, giving a little extra leeway to heal up and take a little less damage throughout the fight. The only conceivable negative of using Dreadnips is that by you introducing this element of randomness, it may make it harder or impossible for you to time your Vengeance with one of Rasial's harder hitting attacks, like his Finger of Death. That said, keeping in mind that one harder hitting Vengeance is not going to lead to you gaining an extra kill per hour, I will gladly take the peace of mind of taking less damage over dealing one slightly harder hitting Vengeance, especially if you are learning. There are 2 good choices in your pocket slot, being the Ful Book and the Jas Book. Personally, I find that they're extremely similar, but there are a few factors to consider as to which you will find more enjoyable. One notable advantage of the Ful Book is that it is a consistent damage increase. No matter when the effect activates, you will always be benefiting from that DPS increase, whereas the Jas Book may activate at an inopportune moment, such as during the phase transition or at the very end of the kill. However, when the Jas Book does proc in a good time, it is going to store and deal a lot of damage, almost always going to deal a 30k hit, so you can definitely get some nice personal records with some good luck. Taking those things into account, I just recommend that you take whichever of the 2 books you find the most fun. I personally enjoy the RNG aspect of the Jas Book and the feeling of seeing that extra 30k hit, so I've used that for the majority of my kills. Before we break down the rotation, I have a few final notes about your aura, relic setup, and familiar. This rotation does require you to have a specific setup for your archaeology relics, that being Conservation of Energy, Berserker's Fury, and Font of Life. We'll also be using the Supreme Invigorate aura, which allows us to retain 10% extra adrenaline after every ultimate ability. Because we are using Berserker's Fury, juicing the Darox and doing optimal damage is a balancing act of keeping your HP as low as possible, but also high enough that you won't die. I recommend trying to be between 4,500 and 5,500 HP, since Rasial can use his own Finger of Death against you that'll deal up to approximately 4,200 damage. Using Disruption Shield at your discretion when you are below this threshold is an important skill to develop. You'll be relying on your Ghost Conjure, your Excalibur, and your Jellyfish to sustain most of your HP in this range. A Blood Reaver is the best familiarity to use, but we will not be using scrolls with this rotation. Since the healing the scrolls provide would be too high for you to maintain your Berserker's Fury, if you're learning or really struggling, you can still use scrolls, but I'd recommend that you set your auto fire to a much lower rate, at an interval of 7. That way you're still passively healing, but you're not healing past the point of the Darok relic being useful. Now, onto the rotation. At the Adrenaline Crystal, build up to 100% Adrenaline. Summon your Ghost, summon your Zombie, summon your Skeleton. Life Transfer. This serves 2 purposes. Number 1, and most importantly, this is going to put us at the HP range for our Berserker's Fury to take effect. And number 2, giving our Conjurers extra time is always nice, especially for our Ghost. Enter the instance. As soon as you do, use Invoke Death and Surge. This Invoke Death is going to give us a free 30k damage at the end. While running, command your Ghost. Optionally, you can Bladed Dive to the final tile where your loot will appear at the end of the kill. This tile will also give you a good position to easily dodge the Ghost Wall attack in the penultimate phase. Finally, command your skeleton. This now puts you in line with the target cycle timing. In the next global cooldown, target cycle, throw a Vuln Bomb, deploy a Dreadnought, and use Death Skulls all at the same time. Now we're building back up to 100% adrenaline by using Soul Sap, Touch of Death, and then an auto attack. More often than not, you're going to get an Impatient proc and be at 100% adrenaline now, but if you are not, simply add one additional Soul Sap. This is very similar to the old rotation I showcased with the Majorat Aura. Now, Living Death and Adrenaline Potion in the same tick, you can tell that you've done this correctly if you're instantly at 34% adrenaline. Use Touch of Death and Death Skulls as your second ability. Split Soul, followed by a Bloat. This is where I like to use my first Vengeance. After Bloat, use Command Skeleton. This will get our skeleton closer to its cap of 25 rage stacks, where it's going to be able to do its highest damage. Now there are 4 abilities until our Death Skulls are back off cooldown, so we're going to use Finger of Death, Auto Attack, Soul Sap, and Touch of Death. Now we Death Skulls. Tier 95 Omni Guard Special Attack and Undead Sigil ability together. From here on out, if you're following this rotation, your auto attack is going to be supercharged and does double damage after either 5 autos or after specific abilities. To fully take advantage of that effect of the Omni Guard, proceed by using the following: Death Spark Auto Attack, Finger of Death, Death Spark Auto Attack, Finger of Death, Death Spark Auto Attack, Soul Sap. More often than not, the boss is phased right around this point, or it is very close to being phased. As necessary, improvise using your Soul Sap, Touch of Death, and Death Spark Auto Attack. At this point, another Finger of Death should only be used if the boss is at 240,000 HP or higher. During the phase transition, aim to use the Command Skeleton ability once more. It can be useful to note that if at the start of the kill, if you got an Impatient proc, you will have 3 stacks of soul by this point. If you did not get the Impatient proc, and you had to do a 4th ability before you could use your Living Death, you will now have 4 stacks of soul to use for your volley of souls. In the final phase, there are a few strategies that you can employ that may require some simple improvisation. As long as you are starting the phase with Death Skulls and then volley of souls, the boss should always die within the next 3 or 4 abilities. From my previous guide, I'm going to bring back the Uno reverse card strategy and suggest that you Limitless Sigil ability and Reflect. Now the majority of damage that Rasial is dealing to you is actually being negated and dealt back to himself. At this point in the fight, it's pretty likely that your Vengeance will be back off cooldown, so you can use this if you remember. After your Reflect, you can improvise with these 3 abilities in any order dependent on your Adrenaline and your Necrosis stacks. Auto Attack, Finger of Death, Tier 90 Death Guard Special Attack. You should play around with the order of these finishing abilities as you see fit. And again, improvise based on your Adrenaline and your Necrosis stacks. Now that you understand the rotation and why we do the abilities in the order that we do, let's look at a full speed kill. At the Adrenaline Crystal, conjure a Ghost, Zombie, and Skeleton. Life Transfer outside the instance, enter the instance, invoke Death and Surge, command your Ghost, command your Skeleton, target cycle Death Skulls, Dreadnought, and Vuln Bomb, Soul Sap, Touch of Death, Auto Attack. Living Death and APOD at the same time, Touch of Death, Death Skulls. Split Soul, Bloat, and Vengeance. Command your Skeleton a second time, Finger of Death, Auto Attack, Soul Sap, Touch of Death. Death Skulls, Tier 95 Omni Guard Special and Undead Sigil, Auto Attack, Finger of Death, Auto Attack, Soul Sap. Here I phased early, so I command my skeletons. Improvise with Touch of Death, Death Skulls, Volley of Souls, Limitless Reflect, Finger of Death, Auto Attack, and a Finger of Death. And now the boss is dead. Hopefully this guide is going to help you to get fast and consistent Rasial kills. If it does, please share it with your friends. Leave me a like, leave me a comment, and let me know which boss you'd like to see in the next Optimal Rotation Guide. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.